Welcome to The Right Advice. I'm Randy.
And I'm Amber. And today we're talking about The Mandalorian Season 3, Episode 1 on Disney+. So, Randy, what was your first reaction?
All right, so I've been a fan of The Mandalorian since Season 1.
Nice.
In my view, that is the one shining star on Disney+.
Agree.
And Season 3, as far as I'm concerned, starts off and right there. I mean, I haven't seen that it's dropped dramatically. And from this, I'm not expecting that the rest of the season moving forward is going to deteriorate and be crap. It is. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the whole episode.
Yeah, so for me, I love Star Wars, but I was one of those people who loved the first three, not 1, 2, and 3, but 4, 5, and 6
yeah.
so much. I mean, that was the show as a kid that I watched. The movies, I watched them over and over and over again. You know how like some kids will today watch, I don't know, what are they watching these days? Phineas and Ferb over and over and over again. I watched Star Wars from age like 6 and up over and over and over again. And so anything that branches from there, if it doesn't feel exactly like it, I'm kind of like, oh, it was Star Wars. I will admit, I watched the Darth Maul lightsaber fight with Obi-Wan Kenobi and Qui-Gon Jinn maybe a million times. So my mom actually let my cousins and I skip school to go and watch that movie. And we were the only kids in the theater at the time. We totally laughed when Darth Maul died.
Okay, and I'm a huge Star Wars fan, and like you, the originals. I mean, so here's one of the things. Star Wars, the first movie, Episode 4, came out in 1977. I went with a buddy of mine, opening night, to go see Star Wars. And here,
oh, nice.
Yeah, here in Phoenix, we had a theater that was really big and had a beautifully large screen. The Cine Capri.
They now have it again. They now have a new Cine Capri. It's not the same.
It's not the same, though. I mean, this was a glorious place to go and see a movie, and they had it, and we were there for the 7 o'clock opening night. And here's the thing. We went, and we showed up like 5 minutes before the movie started, and we got great seats, you know, and everything. And no one knew at that point that Star Wars was going to be this huge phenomena, right? And so 2 weeks later, you could not show up 5 minutes before the movie. You had like an hour wait. And a month later, you had like a 2-hour wait around the building. And
nice.
I got to tell you, I mean, in Phoenix, a 2-hour wait in the sun, you had to be really dedicated to want to really see that movie. So anyways, my point is, I love Star Wars. And for me, this episode, several times, I took notes that this felt like Star Wars. Yep. I mean, there's scenes, and I'll point them out as we move forward. But I'm like, yes, this is what Star Wars is about.
Yeah.
And I love this episode.
And that was my biggest takeaway from The Mandalorian is that, you know, I haven't really been into the newer movies and some of the other shows. But I gotta say, when Mandalorian came out, I was right on board with that meme where it was like there was a giant steam engine and then this tiny little toy steam engine, and it was all these engineers cheering on the tiny toy and saying like, "This is Disney Plus, the giant steam engine," and then here's the Mandalorian pulling it. I was right there with them. I was like, yes, they did something. They've done something with it. They've captured a mood, and I feel like some of the other movies. Maybe the episode 1, 2, and 3, especially episode 1, kind of were on board with it, but they sort of lost something. There was something lost, and I felt sad about that. But The Mandalorian is really trying to capture it. I don't think it's a perfect capture, but it's pretty good capture. So
I agree.
Yeah. All right. So our review is going to be a little different from our other ones. I actually did not take notes, but because I felt like I came away as a mood. It was an experience rather than sitting there and just watching. But let's start with you. What was your first note about this episode?
All right, so it opens up with a fight. It opens up with it doesn't open up with the fight. We have the Mandalorian encampment and the caves, and then it goes from there, and it goes outside, and there's a young boy who's going through the initiation, and at first I think it's a flashback. Like, okay, this is probably a flashback.
That's what I thought.
And then the great big gator turtle thing comes out of the water, and there's a huge fight, and you would think that the Mandalorians would do better, but they don't. And then Mando comes in and he saves the day. He was like, yeah, him and Grogu. And so I really loved it. And I do love, because one of the great things about the original set of movies is you did feel like you were on an alien planet, right? And
Yeah.
these were alien cultures. And I do kind of feel that. And so this whole Mandalorian thing feels like Mystic Knights, right? In the future, of science fiction version of Mystic Knights.
Yeah.
And it felt very true to it. And we see Mandalorian come in and blow up the croc turtle thing, and it was
Croc
great.
turtle.
Yeah, it was
turtle.
great. I love that.
So for me, this scene, the only thing I wish was different about it was the croc turtle. I wish it was a little bit more original, alien-looking creature. It was very crocodile to me. It was a crocodile. That's what it was. And I'm thinking back to Return of the Jedi, the Rancor, and then and I forgot what the Rancor looked like. Some sort of weird alien troll, and for some reason, every time I look at it, I think of a vacuum cleaner. Don't ask me why. I just think of a vacuum cleaner. Maybe it was some sound effect that they used that called to mind vacuum cleaner. But then also, and I forgot what the name of it was, but it was the pit that Boba Fett eventually dies in.
Yeah.
Well, he was supposed to die in it. I know he came back in Boba Fett, but I would like to see something super original. And was it in? It was in the second one, Empire Strikes Back, where they're on the asteroid and the giant worm comes out to snatch at them, remember?
I remember.
Yeah, so I would just like to see very alien-looking aliens that aren't intelligent, because we see a lot of intelligent aliens, but I want the unintelligent ones as well. And so that was my one criticism for this scene. Otherwise, again, I like the Mystic Knights, and that's an old storytelling element that I'm gonna get into later. But anyway.
Right. Anyway, so that was great. Also, I mean, good storytelling. And when I teach classes on this, one of the things is in a story, you need to have a goal. You need to have an objective. So Mandalorian, I'm sorry. I don't know what's wrong with my mouth right now. Mando has one. So he's talking with the armor, and we get the very clearly defined goal that he needs to travel to Mandalore and bathe in these waters. We have a clear goal. Mm-hmm. We understand why he's doing it, and then we can move forward. I mean, so recently we did a review of Last of Us, and that was a problem. I mean, so there's an episode, and to me, it was the worst episode of the series so far, and it's because, there wasn't like, we're going to go to the mall and hang out and run around and do stuff.
It was a detour that really didn't affect the journey in the present.
Right.
Yeah.
But this, we have a clear goal. We know what he's doing. We feel the stakes, right? This is important. This is him being able to be restored to what he was, to the group of people that he is. And so that's good. Like, yes, we've got something. Now we can move forward, and we can tell whether he's getting closer or farther away from that goal with each scene. And that's why you establish a goal in a story, so that the readers can see if the hero's winning or losing.
Yes.
So I love that.
And for do we want to do summaries of the scenes, or we just want to keep plow through, because they end up going to what was it, Navarro or not? Is that the next planet? Yeah, Navarro. I think that's the next place that they end up going to. And it's a place that we have seen before at different stages in the other seasons, where we're seeing it as this, terrible, infested with criminals and lawless people. Yeah. And it's been slowly getting cleaned up. And now it is at the precipice of its prime, being, what was it, a trade. It's an open
trade hub.
Yeah. So I like that. I like that we're seeing growth in the setting. And the one problem that I have here, and this was your pointing out that we have a goal. We have a specific place we're going. We're going to Mandalore. Everything that happens in this episode after receiving that mission, which actually he got, I think, in Book of Boba Fett.
Okay.
So we just kind of get reminded that's what his goal is. He's going to Mandalore to bathe in the waters in the mines or something like that. So everything that happens on the way there feels a little side questy. It does relate to how he gets there, but I feel it's sort of like what my criticism was with season 1 of The Mandalorian, which was like, okay, we're getting to this place, but in order to get there, I need to acquire this piece of equipment. And in order for me to get this piece of equipment, I have to go fight this monster. And then I come back and I've got the equipment. And now I've got the ship. You're great. And it just felt like it was, instead of going from here to here, you were going take a step, go right, go left, come back, take a step, go right, go left, take a step. So it wasn't a consistently moving forward. It was pause and go, not forward, but then moving forward. And that can make a story feel slow. But I will say this, that The Mandalorian does have going for it, is that this seems to be an intentional thing. It is intentionally doing this because it wants to be this slow-moving story with a definite, you're eventually going to get there. So you will get there, but it's going to take its time getting there and have little adventures on the way. I personally find that irritating as a storyteller because I want to get there faster. I want to see the necessity of these things. But I can't really complain because, all right, he needs a part for his machine. Or, in this case, for some reason, he does say he needs the robot. So he went to Navarro to get the robot.
Yeah, the assassin droid.
Yeah.
So it does feel a little side quest-ish. I mean, when he said, I'm going to go and I'm going to find the pieces. I mean, I found this piece. I'm going to go there to Mandalore. Yeah, I thought he was going to go straight there. So I was a little bit surprised. However, because we do know that there's a goal, there's a quest, we're a little more patient. We're going to allow him to move there. I mean, so they did a good job of setting that up. And as you also pointed out, we see progress. So we go here, and this was a lawless city before, and we run into Karga Grieve, who's now the leader of the city. Magistrate, supreme magistrate. I don't know.
Carl Weathers. Carl Weathers is now the magistrate.
And he does an amazing job.
Yeah, he's good.
I love this character.
He's funny.
And so we've seen the city transform. This place has been transformed. So that's great. What we also see is Mando walking down the street. And it just reminds me so much of the first Star Wars movie when they're walking through the streets of Mos Eisley, right? And you have all these different creatures. And obviously, visually, it looks different because it's not the same place. Mos Eisley is a desert, very dry and dusty, and you get that feel. And this one feels more like a thriving community that's not in a desert, right? So, I mean, I loved it. There's all these different things going on. And it did remind me so much of the original Star Wars movie.
Yeah,
so,
and I gotta say, Mandalorian really does appreciate episode 4, 5, and 6 because that was my big complaint with episode 1, 2, and 3, and then also parts of 7, 8, and 9 was that everything was shiny, and I get the idea of, okay, it was this thriving empire in 1, 2, and 3, and then it fell apart. But The Mandalorian takes place during that time period. So things will still look like garbage, but it's getting cleaned up slowly. I like that. To me, it feels very grounded that, this is space, but it's also space junk. It's not, everything's pristine and very different. I like that.
And then the assassin droid has been turned into a statue. All right.
That was kind of morbid.
I liked it because that's a nod back to something that's happened previously, and it's going to elicit some emotions. Hopefully, I mean, the audience is like, we really appreciate that noble sacrifice the assassin droid made to help Mando and Grogu. All right, so that's good storytelling, right? We get that nod back to something in the past, and then it turns out that Mando is going to want to use him because he thinks he can trust the reprogrammed version of the assassin droid. So I love that. That's the reason as well.
The only thing that I didn't... Okay, actually, no. I went into that scene going, oh, no, they're not going to bring back a character from the dead, are they? And because I was going about my business in my house, and I just thought, like, the only way that this will be acceptable is if when he comes back, he's not the same. And that's a big problem that I have in a lot of fantasy and, sci-fi, just stories in general, the fake out death. Everybody thinks they're dead. They've made this wonderful sacrifice, and we go, oh, that was poignant. That meant something to the story. And then the next episode or the next season, you find out, haha, they didn't really die. And I go, oh, but the way that you salvage that is by having them come back not the same. And George R.R. Martin did a good job with that in some of his books, where he would have characters who die and are resurrected, but when they come back, they're not the same. So you still feel like the original character died, like they're gone. And the new one, there's something off about them or different about them. And I think that they did that here. The robot comes back, but he's not the same.
with its original programming, its original assassin programming. So that's not the assassin droid that the viewers like.
Mm-hmm.
It's the original one that we didn't like.
Yeah.
And so, they have that. So that, and of course, their solution moving forward is going to be, well, let's not put in a...
they're going to get a new memory chip or something.
A new memory chip or something.
Yeah.
Which
some circuitry's missing.
So it still won't be
the original
one. So I like that. It'll be something new, and it'll be a good explanation for why that whatever new droid is. So we have another quest.
Yeah.
So that's also good. And often in a story, you have an arc, and the character wants to get to this point from A to B, but along the way they're going to have obstacles, and in order to overcome those obstacles, they do have to undertake another mini quest. Yeah. So we've seen that here. So good storytelling on that part, and I enjoy it. I'm like, okay, yeah. And now I'm interested to see what that new personality will be once they fix the droid.
And I'm predicting that he's not going to remember what he did, and he's going to have to relearn and be reacquainted with his past, and that's always something that we enjoy seeing. I hope that we see some originality put in there as well, but I think it's a good move. It's a way to make the sacrifice still meaningful, and now we get to we still get the character back, just a slightly altered version of him. So yeah.
Okay, another thing with this scene is I'm going to talk about the gunfight scene.
Oh yeah,
and
okay.
I'm so thinking
the pirate scene.
Yeah, the pirates are in, right? But I'm so thinking that this is Western. Mm-hmm. This is a showdown, right? Between Grief and the leader of this group of pirates. He's not the leader of all these pirates. He's just this one small group. He's the leader. And I'm like, that is so Western-like. And I love that. So, yeah, Grief is... in charge of the city now, right? Mm-hmm. And the pirate accuses him of being maybe soft, and I love that, and he does. He's got the outfit and everything.
Yeah.
He is obviously looks like he's probably been softened. So they have this one-on-one gun duel, and we see that he's not soft.
Yeah.
He's every bit as tough as he's ever been. I loved it.
That is always a good thing to do. Now, I know that this is a season 3 and not a whole new series. It is in a way a reset, though, because the Mandalorian's mission has changed. He's no longer, taking Grogu. He's no longer the chauffeur for Grogu and the bodyguard. He is now on his own personal quest. So it's a new story, and a way to keep fans pleased is to always honor the characters that they fell in love with originally. And we've seen them do that poorly in the Star Wars episode 7, 8, and 9, where, oh my gosh, Han Solo, what did they do to him? So, but they did a good job here, and I'm just a warning to the writers that if you ever do another series later on and you have Din Djarin, or you have all these other characters that we fall in love with in The Mandalorian, don't say that they weren't badass. And don't have them have lost too much of their mojo. Like we want to see that they are still the heroes that we loved. And remember, a lot of this is a kids show that adults love.
Yeah,
that's what this is. And so you are molding heroes for kids, or well, you get what I mean. You've got heroes for kids, and that adults go, yeah. Like if I had kids, I would love that they watch this show.
Right.
I would love that they watch it. There's a good, strong, good and evil, and you've got characters who are noble and also badass, and I like that. So you want to make sure you honor those characters always, unless you're trying to depress people or anger them.
And we feel that we've won, right? At least a victory here. I mean, in a story, there's going to be a lot of things that still go wrong, but we feel that from season 1, season 2, there has been a victory.
Yeah.
This city is thriving. It's recovering. It is got so much. It's a bright, shining star of hope in this sector. Mm-hmm. And I love that Mando gets offered the job of sheriff. And,
that's a very Western story, isn't it?
Yeah, right? Yeah. And I'm like, inside, I'm like, oh, yes, take that job. Take that job. But, my mind is saying, he's not going to take that job because he's still got this quest, and he's just going to be, running around the galaxy doing great, awesome Mando kind of things. But part of me really wants him to just take that job, enjoy the fruits of his success, and keep that town safe. I mean, just
it's a good temptation away from the quest. Yeah. And like I was imagining, oh, what if he ends up with Grogu on his little farm and they're mining, or it was a mine, right? That he was offering him, sort of, or was it a farm? It was either way. It was a farm
parcel of land.
parcel of land where he could like farm something, and I think it was metal for some reason, and whatever, doesn't matter. I was just imagining, like this is the space dad and little alien baby, living their life on the farm and just, getting by. I thought that was so cute. But yeah, it's a good temptation away from the main quest, but he has to do what he has to do first. He has to do the right thing, make the sacrifice of, taking the easy way out and living the good life to do what is right for him. So.
And I think that's another sign of a good show or a good story, a good book, is that there's some options that come up and the viewer or the reader, the audience, they're like, oh, that would be so great. They are so tempted by that other offer that they would be probably just as satisfied if that's where the story went. Yeah. And we get that. And then, of course, we're always going to be wondering, like, what would it have been like if Mando became the sheriff of that town, right? I mean, so good, in my mind, very good storytelling.
Yeah, same here. And I think that they're following some classic Western style storytelling tropes here in a good way. I'm happy with a space Western.
Well, the original Star Wars Episode 4 was described as a Western in space. And I believe that Lucas even kind of talked about that as well. Mm-hmm. So the structure and everything is a Western. So this show is being true to that original vision. So I thought that was great.
Yeah, very well done.
All right, what's the next thing you have?
Okay, so the next scene is they go to those little creatures that are going to help fix the robot.
The Anzelians.
The Anzelians. I thought they were funny.
They were awesome.
And I
loved them.
I gotta say, I really love good practical effects. And even though sometimes they look a little bit clunky, you look at the details on their faces, and that says a lot. Like that's hard to do. To get the details on the faces, like moving lips and stuff, and the little tiny twitches in their skin. That is so wonderful to see on screen. The practical effects, they're underutilized today, and I'm glad to see that they're here.
Yeah, I mean, so that scene. That might be my favorite scene, and also because we get Grogu, and I love Grogu, and he comes in and he hugs one of them, and is like, bad baby, and I thought, so Grogu kind of does what I was thinking, like, oh, those things are so cute, you just want to give them a hug, right? And then Grogu does that, and so I love that scene, and of course we get it is part of the story. This is where we find out that. Well, if Mando goes and gets a new
chip,
they can replace that and they can fix the robot. But otherwise, he's broken. Yeah, he's broke.
Yeah, it's a broke robot.
Broke.
So the new mission is, okay, we're still going to Mandalore, but we're also going to go and get this chip. We don't know where from. He's just going to go get it. So then he gets in his plane his starship and takes off, and as he's leaving he comes across the pirates that they had the gunfight with
in space.
And I gotta say, this was my favorite scene, this one, because I love in The Empire Strikes Back, and it's my favorite piece of the entire Star Wars score is the Millennium Falcon going through the asteroid field to get away from the Empire. I just love it so much. It's so adventurous. And I was getting major vibes of that during this whole scene. I like that he hides and they're looking for him. And then you just see the one ship go behind the asteroid and you see a giant explosion on the other side. So you're like, okay, he's over there.
He's over there.
I like that. They're doing a lot of tropey things that we haven't seen in a while that work. And he's doing it very well. So thumbs up to the director and the writers.
Favreau.
I love that they're doing this and doing it well. And I'm not going to say that it's like this is 10 out of 10, but he's doing it in a very satisfying way. I come back feeling it's satisfying.
Well, it's Star Wars, and it is like the original Star Wars. In Episode 4, we see so much of the elements that made audiences across the world love this franchise, and we're seeing them in this series. And I'm really grateful for that. It's staying true to the material. It's staying true to the original IP.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I love the dogfight. That was great. And then that leads him. Then he goes and meets with Bo, and I don't remember her last name.
I forget her name too. Bo-Katan. I forget.
Bo-Katan, I think.
It's the girl, the girl Mando, the girl non-Mando Mando.
Yeah, the Mandalorians sect that don't wear their helmets all the time.
She was one of my favorite characters in season, what was it, 2? It was 2. I liked her.
So this is great, and especially for the plot, right? So she has lost, and okay, so let me take a step back.
Okay, go ahead.
So what we see with this, now you're talking about side quests, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you talk about structure on a story, well, there's a lot, and what happens in it is in a 3-act structure, in the middle, we have what's known as allies and enemies.
Yeah.
And so this is what we're doing. So Mando is he's attempting to collect allies. So he wants the droid because he knows he could trust the droid with the right personality chip to be a staunch ally. And he's going to Bo because he believes that she will be a good ally as well. All right, so this is pretty standard for storytelling structure, but she no longer has the troops because Mando has the dark saber.
Dark saber, yeah.
The others will not follow her, but she tells him, you just wave that thing around and they'll just be happy to follow you. That's all it takes for those people is to have that dark...
I was a little disappointed in her losing her spark, but
yeah.
I have a feeling it's going to come back because I don't know. I don't know if it was actually there in the scene, but for me, I just thought this is such a great character. I don't think that they're going to leave her sitting on a throne pouting.
Well, I wouldn't. If I'm writing it,
no.
We're talking about redemption and everything. And so we don't want, she is fallen right now.
Yeah.
And it will be rewarding for us to see her come out of that fallen state as an ally of Mando, right? And maybe she will take leadership of that group again. I'm not sure.
Maybe. I would like to see that. I would like to see that she is not only in this scene and then we never see her again and we just assume that she's still on that throne pouting. That'd be sad.
Okay. I felt that maybe there's a glimmer of a future storyline that, so she's talking about you get the lightsaber and you can lead this one group. But now I'm thinking he goes to Mandalorian. He could be the leader of all the Mandalorians.
I don't think that's going to be him. I don't think that, because so I get the impression that he's the knight, like the guard. He's not the king.
But he could be the unifier.
He could be. But that doesn't mean that you are the leader at the end. It could mean that it is around you that the troops have rallied. But I don't feel like they would
rally around you initially. You may not be the long-term leader. So that's what I'm hinting at, is that he might bring all of the factions together and heal Mandalore once again and bring the society back to a functional society. So for me, there's a hint that could be the long-term goal and possibility. And so for me, that's exciting. That makes this character kind of a much more grand character. You think of any really good character. So you think of Dune, you think of the main character in Dune, and he's going to be a unifier of the Fremen on Arrakis and it just all the households. He's going to be a unifier and bring everything together. And I think that we see the potential for Mando to be that. So I thought that was great. But I felt that this scene was kind of a letdown. He goes and we get some information and it just kind of ends there.
Yeah.
So
I wasn't even sure why he was there because I thought he was going to go look for that chip. So I thought, is this where he's going to get the chip? And then, actually, first I thought, oh, wait, is this Mandalore? It doesn't look that bad.
Yeah.
And then he gets there and I'm like, oh, wait, it's not Mandalore. Okay, maybe he's getting the chip. And he's not getting the chip. And I'm like, what the heck is this? So it was a little weird for me. It felt like it was out there. But because the writers have done a decent job at keeping this story all relevant, even the side quests have, at least been related to him trying to move forward. They seem to be there for a reason. So I'm seeing this is an introduction of this character to let the audience know this character will be important moving forward, and everything that they have discussed. So about the leading the Mandalorians or reuniting the Mandalorians and the Darksaber, and all this is going to be relevant, and this character, I hope too, continues to be relevant to this story. So.
Right, and because I feel that this is part of that section of gathering allies and creating enemies, I'm okay with it. So my problem is not necessarily the scene, it's that this is the scene that ends this episode.
Oh yeah, kind of a letdown.
Because you're just kind of going and like, it's over.
Yeah.
And I'm like, there's no real cliffhanger here.
Yeah.
Nothing to make you really be pondering. I mean, I did come up with these ideas in my mind, but they were really subtle. They're not the kind of bold revelations at the end of a chapter or at the end of an episode.
It is an odd one to end in a show that is meant for children that adults can enjoy. It's a weird one because it's the low key, it's all conversation, and then kind of they fly off in the end. Yeah. So I only have a final note on this.
Okay.
And that is that I really appreciate that they're looking at older themes in storytelling. So the thing that I loved about the original the original 3, 4, 5, and 6 was that and actually 1, 2, and 3 did a good job with this. They really did a good job with this. The Jedi are a religion and a way of life, very much based on Taoism, and so is the Mandalorian faith or their culture. It is all the way is actually the Tao in ancient Chinese philosophy translates, I believe, to the way or the path, and I like that they are focusing on characters who want to stay true to their faith and the redemption in order to be accepted back into it. Like they have found a philosophy that is true and that they want to follow, that is impossible to be perfect with, but the effort to always go back into it and follow it. It's a very, very old story. The story of apostasy or being, making a mistake and falling astray, but then trying to come back in line. You see it again and again with storytelling as far back as Greek mythology. And I like that. I like that we're going back to that theme so strongly. And since we don't have the Jedi in this, really, it's the Mandalorians. So the Mandalorian world culture is the new Jedi culture for this series. So I like that they're still keeping with that theme. You've got gunfights and adventure, but then you've got the way. We've got to return to the way. So he is going to be reborn or rebaptized, bathing in the waters of Mandalore, in order to be basically reborn back into his culture, into his faith. And so I like that. It's a higher up sort of a goal, and as kids, we just go, oh yeah, it's that cool religion where everybody's very serious and badass. But when you look at it as an adult and you say, okay, I can see how this has a little bit more in line with like real human culture, where we say that, there are ideas, philosophies, and religion and truth, and they're impossible to embody perfectly, but the goal is to always try to come back to it. And you see a lot in modern film where it's, no, break away and go do your own thing, be you. But I like that this is there's this truth that I want to follow. So it's a immortal sort of story, because we've done this for hundreds of years. I mean, probably thousands, but we don't know. But so I like to see that we're still doing this in science fiction today.
So, and if you've been following our show for a while, our podcast, you'll have heard me talked about there are some kind of universal truths that are out there, and stories that get based on those principles tend to be way more successful because innately we all feel those. So one of those is the story of redemption. Mm-hmm. All right. And this is what we're seeing. So Mando is going through a story of redemption. We like those stories because we like to, it reinforces that we can make a mistake and then we can find a way to make it better. Right. And that's something that everyone, no matter where you think on religion or whatever, that's a good thing, right? Mm-hmm. We should be able to recover from our mistakes. And so that's why it rings so true and so strongly with audiences, because that is something everyone can understand and everyone can appreciate. And I just have one last note. So you talk about the Tao. For me, the Mandalorians feel much more like the Knights Templar.
Yeah.
All right.
It's
And
another
then
one.
him going back to Mandalore and having to bathe in that. I mean, I'm hearing that, I'm thinking, like, that sounds like baptism.
Yeah.
And if you're basing this on Knights Templar, that would be very symbolic.
hmm
And that's not to say that they're going to preach any kind of religion with it. They've just structured this group on something that we've seen in historically,
hmm
right? And you do that, and it makes it feel a lot more real, I think.
It does. It's a relatable thing, and also it makes it feel ancient. I love
Yeah.
it does such. It's good for so many reasons, and I think the biggest one being that it gives a simplistic story an elevated goal, and I mean elevated on a philosophical and moral level. Because that I think is one of the reasons why adults kind of like this stuff. Other than we just like seeing our childhood heroes, in real life, but. I appreciate it so much when old storytelling is redone, not to disrespect the old storytelling, but to retell it in a way that is fresh.
Right.
And so I like that.
All right. I think that only leaves us to giving it a rating.
Yeah, for me, let's see. Because it's a first episode, I always go a little bit easy on it, and I had problems with some of the pacing, but again, that's a problem I've had with all of them. I'm gonna give it an 8.5. 8.5, just because
Okay.
I saw problems, like you said, at the very end, ending on this weird note, but very enjoyable otherwise.
I'm going to give it a 9. And I'm dinging it just for that ending on a note that I'm like, what? It's over? I mean, because I sure wasn't expecting it to be over at that point. I didn't feel like it had reached a conclusion point. And so, a 9. I still loved it. I'm still super excited to see the rest of the season. So, yeah. And a
I
9's
think
a
it's
good
fun.
score.
Yeah, 9's a good score. And I rate these, I'm not saying this is Lawrence of Arabia, right? But for what it is, it's very, very good.
Yeah.
And, that's how Randy and I rate these things. Obviously, we're not comparing them to some of the other films and stuff that are out there. But for what this is very good. It's solid. It is a solid children's science fiction adventure that adults can enjoy.
Yeah.
How many times have we said that about a movie or show in the last 5 years?
Not often.
Not since Pixar fell back into the Disney wagon.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Until next time. Later.